So the floodgates have already opened, ladies and gentlemen. In this third hour of Ring of Fire today. Numbers 800-783-7412. A group of faith leaders, according to Molly Ball in The Atlantic, is now urging the Obama administration to include a religious exemption in a forthcoming LGBT anti-discrimination action. You recall the president, several weeks ago, announced that he would instruct federal contractors via an executive order. He would ban federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. How controversial. In other words, he's saying to federal contractors, if you want U.S. taxpayer money, you can't fire somebody just because they're gay. Or you can't fire somebody because they identify as a different gender than they were born with. How controversial. I mean, we have Hyde Amendments and Hyde Amendment Plus and how federal taxpayer dollars can't be spent to protect the interests of those religious people whose worlds will be destroyed if other people don't follow their religious precepts. And now they want an exemption so that our taxpayer dollars could theoretically go to them and they could still fire somebody because they were gay. Unbelievable. And this story is just heartbreaking. NBC News reports Gilberto Ramos, Guatemalan boy found dead after crossing into the U.S. Turns out he was 15 years old, not 11. Was leaving his mountain village in Guatemala to earn money to treat his mother's epilepsy. When he was found dead, he was still wearing the rosary his mother gave him for safe passage after she had begged him not to go. The better treatment would have been if he had stayed, she said. Gilberto, who apparently was charged $5,400 by a coyote smuggler to take him across the border. The family borrowed $2,600 of that. They paid $2,000 the first week of the journey, another $600 the week before he died. They still owe the debt. The family had no pictures left of Gilberto since they had to send them to the U.S. to identify the body. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, you don't want those type of people who have that value that they would, at age 15, travel by foot, or who knows by how, to America to work so that their mother could get medication for epilepsy. Those aren't the type of people we want in this country. Let's go to Bill in Glendale, Arizona. Welcome to the program, Bill.
Thank you. I agree 99.9% what you have to say. I listen to you every day. But whatever, what you said about this tirade about these kids, we got to let them in. What are we going to do with them? 90,000 so far this year. Like my daughter's a school teacher. She's 17 years she's been a teacher, and it gets worse every day. We live in Glendale, suburb of Phoenix, and we get all these immigrant kids. They don't know English. They're not immunized. They don't have a family. Nobody in the family has a job, and a burden. We have to have. She's in a Title I school district where the kids get subsidized breakfast and lunches, and it's just not Mexicans. It's Americans too. But and then consequently you can't hire another math teacher or a science teacher. You have to hire somebody proficient in Spanish as an interpreter, and all these. What are we going to do with just 90,000 kids that came in so far this year, and who is going to pay for it all? The only thing I have is Social Security. So I'm just looking at it, okay, I won't get a cost of living next year because we're going to be taking care of these 90,000 kids that just came in this year. Well,
first off, let's work backwards to forwards, Bill. Okay. The reason why you're not going to get a cost of living increase has absolutely zero to do with the money that is expended upon in any other place. The reason why you're not going to get a cost of living increase in many respects is the exact same impetus as to why we will not care for these children. So I can assure you, it is not why you're not going to get a cost of living increase.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Secondly, these kids are here. We have laws as to providing them due process, right? I mean, we have to determine whether or not we will allow them into this country through a process of due process, right? We can't round them up and just wholesale put them on a barge, right, into the ocean. We're going to have to do something with them, and it's going to cost money. And the question is, what are we going to get for this money? We can spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in rounding these kids up, sending them back to a country where people are fleeing the country. They're going in all different directions. The problem's not going to go away. It may go away temporarily. Maybe these kids will come back.
Okay, I'll give you that.
The point is that we have the resources to absorb these kids if we want to expend it.
Okay.
And look, the reality is it's going to cost money no matter what. And this is a function of a lot of policies, not just ours. It's not just our fault that these kids have come here, but we have spent much of the 20th century destabilizing Central America. Our things like NAFTA have destroyed the capacity for people to make money in Mexico, particularly if they are farmers. And so, something has to be done. And, if we can reunite these kids with their parents, and we don't have to see more stories like the one I read the other day where we send kids to the wrong country and just drop them off.
Okay, like I said, I'll give you Social Security. Okay, my property taxes. Consequently, we're having all these kids coming and don't need English. They got to hire more interpreters, Spanish teachers. So, like I said, instead of hiring more science or math teachers. But here's a prime example. Just a couple days ago in Phoenix here, there was a critically stabbed guy in this apartment complex, which was it was all Somalian refugees. So here it is. The police respond. They want to know the description of the guy, what happened, whatever. Nobody knows because it's dialect from Somalia that nobody knows. And so now the police department is going to have to go hire somebody who knows this dialect because there's thousands, just in Phoenix, Arizona, thousands of these Somali refugees. And then not the worst, but the biggest enclave of Somalians is in Minnesota. There's like 26,000 Somali refugees just in a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. What do you do? These people come here. They don't know the English. They can't know where they're going to get a job. They got to be fed. They got to be housed. Who's paying for all that?
Bill, are you aware of the different languages that have come to this country over the past couple hundred years?
Both my grandparents, one came from Poland, one came from Lithuania. So
And did they speak English when they came?
No. But they assimilated. They learned. They got my grandfather. He got a job as a blacksmith in a quarry. Worked his butt into the ground. And
are you suggesting these Somali refugees don't work?
I'm not saying.
Why are they fundamentally different from your grandparents?
Who's going to hire somebody that doesn't know English, comes here most of the times because they
Who hired your hired your grandfather who didn't know English?
You know, back at that time, before you became a U.S. citizen, you had to read, write, and speak English. That's how he got his job. Nowadays, it's come on aboard, and you don't have to have the knowledge of writing, reading, or speaking English.
I'm not so sure about that, buddy. I'll look into that. When was that?
I've got neighbors down the street that don't know English. And I've been on the street.
No, Bill, I want to know when the immigration laws were such that you had to learn to read and write English.
Well, back when my grandmother came aboard, that was the law. You had to write, read, and speak English. That's how my grandfather got his job. He knew English, so somebody.
When did they come, Bill?
That was back in 1920-something.
Okay. Well, I'll check that out. I appreciate the call, Bill. I mean, but the reality is that, in 70 years, or I should say, whatever it is, 95 years from now, some of these kids, grandchildren, will be your age, and I suspect they will be speaking English, and I hope that they're not complaining about whoever it is. Maybe it'll be the Poles again who are wanting to come to this country. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. 800-783-7412. We'll take more of your calls.